Hello and welcome to the Youth Work Plus podcast. Thanks for listening. It's good to have you with us today. Our guest today is Terri Clarke. She is a local connection of Youth Work Plus. She's in our Milton Keynes network. She first connected with us when she was an Ethos youth worker at Grace Foundation at a local secondary school, but she doesn't work for them anymore. So I'm going to let her introduce what she does for her job now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Becky. So I first met you guys obviously through Ethos as a youth worker with them, but now I no longer do that. I do two jobs. I work part-time for World Vision as an events manager, which is super fun. And I work the other half of my time as an assistant pastor now for my church, Garden City Vineyard here in Milton Keynes. And as part of that, I oversee the youth and kids work and work alongside that. So yeah, that's me. That's what I do.
Thanks, Terri. So tell us a bit more about your current role with church. What does that entail? What do you do for kids, young people and families?
Yeah, fantastic. So like many things, it's a bit of a balance. Balancing two ministries is extremely tricky. I had this conversation with somebody else recently that it's like kind of serving two masters, and I know biblically it warns against that. And it's kind of why I've had to really learn the principles of like leadership and boundary setting, taking time to focus on personal growth, development, and knowing that actually the ministries are going to benefit way more because of it, basically. So in order to lead others, that's what self-leadership is. I need to lead myself and to ensure that the vision stays fresh for both of them and all sorts. But essentially what it involves is younger kids. We offer two ministries on a Sunday from 0 up to 11. And then we run youth also on a Sunday, midweek socials, and also a youth leadership thing, as well as holiday camps and other bits and pieces in the middle. And at the moment, we are exploring the possibility of doing some kind of outreach as well within the primary school that we're a part of, and then kind of pastorally supporting families across the church as well. So yeah, a multitude of things. And like I said, it is like balancing two masters because I've got two ministries with kids and youth, and so it's tricky, but it's really important to kind of, like I said, keep things balanced, and focus on things in particular, like my relationship with God. Like, is that solid? Because if not, I can't lead these ministries without him. So that's really, really, really key. And stewardship of time, like I said, for me, one of the key things that I've kind of been learning recently is prioritizing the things that come above ministry. So making sure that it goes God, my family, really, really key, and then my ministry. And sometimes that means saying no. And like I said, building those good boundaries. Choosing an attitude to gratitude. So knowing that I'm not going to be able to do everything, but actually being really grateful for where things are at the moment. So our church was planted 2 and a bit years ago. And I kind of, we were planted longer than that, but we launched officially 2 years ago. And I kind of launched into this ministry about that same time. And at first, my role was catalyst, which was to launch these ministries, get them off the ground and running. And that's since kind of developed into an assistant pastor role with church. I'm really grateful because not everybody gets the opportunity to be paid to do this. But I actually think, I'm really grateful that I do get the opportunity for that. But it doesn't make it any easier with building team and, like I said, with focusing on stuff. So practically, it looks like building team. It looks like preparing and serving alongside them, like I said, Sundays and midweek. It looks like casting vision and offering pastoral oversight and support for parents, families, kids and youth. And like I said, then building the partnership with the school as well as kind of wider outreach opportunities. And then thinking about the long-term strategic planning, like how does this look with the church kind of going forward? How do we grow? How do we expand in that? So yeah, lots of nuggets in amongst all of that.
So, Terri, tell us a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah.
How, when and why did you get into youth and kids ministry in the first place? And how has that led to your current role?
Yeah, so I started long time ago. Well, this is a long journey. I suppose for me, it started when I was younger. My mum used to lead our kids ministry when I was little, and she kind of dragged us along. we were kind of part of it, part and parcel of that. All the cheesy songs. The only reason I remember Bible verses is because of her, 100%. She used to play all these like Bible songs to me when I was little. And then I kind of supported youth, and I actually supported youth as a youth myself. I did some kind of mentoring of younger youth when I was a youth myself, and my youth leader was super encouraging in that. But also then kind of led to going into a few different things. I went to university. I then led a student ministry, and I did quite a lot of student stuff when I was at uni. I still kind of did some kids stuff on a Sunday, but I actually mainly led some of the student ministry, and then was going to step into ministry after I graduated. And I was like, yeah, no. And I had a whole journey of kind of like exploring away from faith with God, and kind of have come back round to that, which then led me into all sorts of things with COVID, meaning that I wasn't able to kind of get work and stuff. And the only thing that was open was teaching. And I'd already done a lot of stuff with young people. I'd done activity summer camps. I'd worked in all sorts of different things. I'd worked in Italy, touring with teaching English in schools and stuff. And so for me, it made sense maybe to go into teaching. So I kind of shuffled into that, and then decided that's what I wanted to do with young people in a secondary school. So I learnt to teach in a secondary school for drama, and that just kind of crashed and burned a little bit. It was really a hard year, and I'm in awe of teachers, mate. If you're a teacher out there listening to this, keep going. I want to encourage you. It's tough work, but keep going. You are doing a fantastic job, and know that there are people cheering you on, especially us youth leaders, because you see them day in, day out. You see them all the time. So yeah, but actually, I want to encourage teachers out there. I stepped away from that to then work with Ethos. And that's kind of how I ended up here in Milton Keynes, and ended up basically finding you guys as Youth Work Plus. And I stepped into youth work because I was already kind of working with young people, and my subject matter enabled me to kind of do quite a bit with PSHC type stuff. So for me, it made sense to kind of step into working with young people in mental health and actually kind of going into youth work. And then that progressed into basically me working for other charities, and then kind of deciding that I wasn't really sure what God wanted me to do, until I discovered I was frustrated with the idea of calling. Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And I had a good conversation with my pastor and his wife, and she said, if you could do anything just to get rid of all of like money parameters, to some extent kind of desire as well, like what is the core thing that you would love to do? And I was like, work for God. And she was like, okay, so how does that look? What does that look like? And there was a leadership training year with the network that I'm part of with Vineyard, and so I decided to explore that. And so I was like, okay, do you know what, I'm going to apply for it. And I did. I applied for it quite last minute, and it just so happened that at the same time my World Vision job, which I'm currently in, I was made redundant. So the Lord has funny ways of doing things. And I was like, what do I do? I've just said yes to this thing, which means I'm giving up a day of work, and now I don't have any work potentially. And I was like, Lord, all I know is this. And I had to really trust that he had got it. Unfortunately, lo and behold, behind the scenes, my pastor was moving into a different role, which opened up an opportunity at church to actually have a paid placement, which they really needed somebody to launch the kids and youth ministry. And if I'm honest with you, I didn't call myself a kids or youth worker at that point. It was fill a gap. And I was like, sure. And now I just love it. Like the heart, the vision, I want to see children both in my church, but across the country on fire for Jesus in their 20s. I want to see them like, this movement that is happening. I want to see it continue long into the years to come. I want to see them built up so that actually when they hit university and they get inspired, or they go to, church at uni, and then they end up graduating like I did, things don't crumble because one brick gets pulled. Like we actually build them up and build their faith up in a way that they can question it, that they can know that it's a journey, it's a roller coaster, and it goes up and down, and we're not always going to be on fire for Jesus, but actually we will have moments where we can, and that they are they are invested in so that they have spiritual gifting long into the future, and that discipleship journey is like long term, which is why I've controversial for a youth worker, but I've always said, I don't want to grow my youth. I want my youth, I do want to grow it, but I don't want to grow it in the sense that I'm not about the numbers. I'm not about the numbers game and never have been. I'm about absolutely about the heart of discipleship. I think that works small. It's why we have in church small groups. It's why we have those things, because actually we can't be intentional about faith and encouraging one another unless we have those small spaces to do that. I'm not saying big youth groups aren't a great thing. They are. So for any big youth group leaders out there, good on you. You better have a great team because you need it. But yeah, when you're church planting and you're starting small, you have those big visions. But I think for me, like the investment, I went to a massive youth group when I was younger, and probably 3 of us out of the 30 odd people are now still Christian. And that's sad. Like, that's really sad. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, we can't predict what our young people's journeys are going to be like, and what our kids' journeys are going to be like into the future. But what we can do is try and invest so that actually their faith can last for the long haul, that it can last those ups and downs, that when they go through suffering, when they go through really hard times, that actually they push into God rather than push away, and actually that's really crucial. And that's kind of where I am now. I'm now in my role. We're still really early days. I keep finding myself going, Terri, you're running away and you just need a step back because we're just not there yet, and really like fortifying team, building around that and learning to grow. Church planting is, for any church planters out there as well, church planting is tough. It's not an easy thing. Things kind of go and ebb and flow. You don't have a space. You just sort of like kitting in and out every time, and there's sort of like testing. You're always testing. You're always going, is this going to work? I don't know. Let's try it. And it's a real tough journey of kind of holding that pioneering vision of what you can see and what God's doing and partnering in with him, and then also building up team to come alongside you in that and knowing where you're at and just being able to be present and know where you're at. And that's why I think gratitude is so important, because you've got to just be like, yep, okay, what's been great this week, rather than like, we've not done this, actually. Yeah. It could be so easy to fall into, we're not like that church, but, or I've not done things like that. But actually, where you're at is great and you're doing good and I'm doing good. So that's what I have to tell myself. Yeah.
Your perspective is key, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
How else do you think God has led, moved, changed you along the way of your history journey?
I think for me, a huge part of what I've learned is that I pray more than I do. In fact, on my laptop here right in front of me, and also on my water bottle and on almost everything that's visible to me, I bought these stickers from Etsy that say pray, wait, trust. And it was a real reminder to myself, so that everywhere I go, I see that and I just go, okay, yeah, actually bringing God to the forefront in prayer. I think we can be very quick, when we get into the to-do list of stuff and we go, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, do this. We do stuff, but we forget to invite God into it. We forget to actually have him at the center of that and at the forefront. And we leave prayer to I've set up everything, now let's pray, and actually really we should invite him in first. And so for me, it's a shift in my brain on that, to be actually, it's okay if my week this week has just looked like I've prayed, because actually that's way more important than any of the doing that I can do, and so I think for me, that's probably been a really key shift, particularly in my ministry life. I think because I came from not working in ministry, and I basically, in the normal working world, we are surrounded by this. We have to, produce, we have to do, we have to achieve, and you have targets, you have things. And so, you kind of tick off stuff and that makes you feel good. And at the end of the day, that's how it is. But God's kingdom is not like that. And so when you work in ministry, it's the opposite, You actually need to shift your brain from what the world says, which is achieving through doing, and actually it's achieving through allowing God to do, rather than you do. So yeah, that is a definite shift, which is quite a hard thing to do. I think for me particularly, just because I'm very driven by achievement, and so that's been a real heart journey with the Lord on that. So I think for me, leadership course I went on was such an incredible year, but actually this year, the application of all of that has been really forming and shifting, because God's just been molding me into a better leader with a lot of that. So yeah, put aside the task list and invite prayer in first. I didn't do that. We should have done that. But yeah, that would be my thing, particularly in a kind of ministry role. And if you're if you're volunteering and you're volunteering your time to these ministries, know that that's also okay for you as well. You might not have a lot of time, but time spent with God is more crucial.
Terri, have you got any particular ministry highlights or good news stories so far?
Yeah, I do. I have loads. I wrote loads, which was grand. So I hope it's okay if I share them. But basically, so many things. I've been prepping for this. I realized that it was really great. I said that whole attitude to gratitude. I was able to write stuff down, but I actually want to give everybody a bit of advice here. Keep nuggets, keep these things, remember them and write them down, because they are the things that keep you persevering when the road gets tough. And these are some of the things I could think of. So in kids, we had some little ones that were making megaphones. This was in the Babies and Tots. I don't lead it, but my volunteer leader does. And they were doing some thank you prayers. And they were just like fighting to be the loudest and liveliest person, praising from the lips of infants. Like, incredible thing on a Sunday to watch and witness. Chaos, but it was so lovely. I had a parent whose daughter, who's only 3, and she told me that she found her once just independent imaginary playing by herself. She was retelling the water you turned into wine story that she'd remembered from church like weeks before, right? And another parent shared with me that their child's like their revival drawings that they were just doing, telling God how amazing he is and how much she loves him, and how when she's afraid, God is there. And I was like, I love that. Like, that's absolutely incredible. And it's just encouraging when you don't see that on a Sunday, to get that encouragement. The kids in my sessions a few weeks ago, there's so much retelling of Jesus. We were retelling the story of Jesus blesses the children. And my personal highlight was watching them basically be Jesus and shoo away the disciples, literally sweeping the characters off the table, saying, "Stop, let them come," which was so funny, but absolutely adorable. And this year we had 3 youth get baptized in January, which was an absolute privilege and a joy to be at the beginning of hearing their wonderful testimonies. Watching my young leaders lead with grace. We had an Easter family service recently. We invited the local community and we invited loads of different people. And I didn't end up having enough team. So I went, right, young leaders, you're going to lead grace and you're going to help me lead this thing. And they just took it. They just took it on. They led it. They did it so well. And that was a real particular highlight for me. Just kind of seeing the investment in that. Really recently, just watching some of my own team, volunteer team and leaders just step up in a way that one has been a blessing to me, because life is chaos and I can't do it all myself. That's been just a blessing, but also seeing them flourish. And I had a leader tell me, "Oh yeah, I'm not very good at teaching or leading." But he taught and he led a youth session and our midweek youth session. And afterwards we were chatting about it. And he had said that in the session. And then he went, "Yeah, do you know what? I really love that though." And I was like, yes, you are good at it. You can do it. You can grow in this. And that was really, 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 really encouraging. Yeah. So there's lots more like that. In fact, I'm going to say just one more because it's a really incredible miracle. And my young person, one of my young people who kind of just started, he's just starting out on his journey of faith. He had a really bad sty in his eye over Easter, and he was in the car traveling. And we had these mini Jesuses that the whole families were hunting for, and he'd put it in his one in the car. And so he grabbed it to pray, and as soon as he touched it, the sty went. And it just disappeared. And for him, that was just an incredible moment, I think, just on his journey of faith, on realizing that actually God can do miracles and it can happen, and it can happen for him. And that's just really encouraged him to pray for others. And I'm seeing that actually more, and to ask more questions about faith. He's really open to that. So that was just great. And this wasn't even a me thing, that was a God thing. And we just get to partner with that, and explore that with him, which is really cool. So yeah.
Amazing stories. Love them. Love them all. Have you got a fun question that you brought to ask me?
Oh, see, okay, I'm going to say this. What is the weirdest thing that you've ever been asked to do in youth or kids ministry?
The weirdest thing I've ever been asked to do. I don't think I've been asked to do many weird things.
That's a shame. Or how about this? What was the most embarrassing thing you had to do when you were younger and you were a youth then? Because I can give you an example of this myself. We were playing a banana game, and we had to basically unpeel the banana with our foot, carry it across the room, bring it back, and then the forfeit was the team who didn't do very well had to eat it. That's the kind of challenges we had when we were younger. Gross stuff.
Yeah,
you couldn't get away with that nowadays, but I think about it.
I probably similar. I remember drinking and eating weird concoctions, and
I love it. See, there you go.
Yeah, stuff that you couldn't get away with now. Chubby bunnies, which is now no longer allowed, where you stick as many marshmallows as you can in your mouth.
Brilliant. Yeah.
General health and safety dangerous things that we did and got asked to do.
I love
Our
it.
my youth group was part of quite a big youth group, and we had small groups within the bigger group that met on a Sunday, and we met in the old chapel, which is where our church used to be, but we outgrew it and then met in the school down the road. And so the youth got pushed off down the road to go meet in this old chapel that was dusty, damp, mice ridden. It was definitely, I don't think we would dare to send young people to that kind of a place now. It would be condemned. That was highlight of Sunday. Are we going to see a mouse today run out from one sofa to the other? Or find any dead mice in random places.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. I actually got locked in my church once by accident. I was in a Baptist church, and we had this huge, the whole building was like this, and then it was pitch black, and once I randomly, I don't remember what happened, but we were in the other bit of it, and so somehow I managed to make it in there, but then I got locked in because they were locked the building so that nobody could go back into that bit. It was horrible because there's this massive dark horrible building with these big windows, and I was like, let me back in.
Oh no.
Disaster. I love that though. Not quite the same as chasing mice and counting how many there were.
Yeah. What area of kids, youth, family ministry are you the most passionate about, and why?
Good question. I think for me, my passion and calling stems from something that God shared with me a long time ago, and that is inspired that I might inspire others. So for me, my passion lies in all of the areas of ministry that I do. I'm called to, and I love to see others step up in their God-given value, their purpose and their gifting. I think that's why I said watching my team flourish, into their gifting, watching my young people flourish into their gifting, seeing, them suddenly have a prophetic call on their life from the age of 3, it's just really lovely. And that is probably the bit I'm most passionate about. It's the bit that I actually am not the best at, if I'm honest with you. One of the big learning things for me, again, this year, another big learning thing is learning that I can't do it all myself and really delegating well. And ironically, that's what I want to do because that's my passion, to invest in others. But I'm not the best at it. And so, it's funny. But the Lord is kind of humbling my own pride on that, to do these things for them, because unless I step back, I won't see others step up. That's probably where my passion is. And I guess also I love, without kind of being over proud, but I love to speak. I love to teach and speak. And this year I've had the privilege of being invited to a youth weekend away from a friend of mine's youth. And it was such an awesome time, just equipping again and teaching the young people and encouraging the youth leaders at that. Because I wasn't the youth leader there. I went as an external speaker, but it was just for me, that was probably my most passionate time this year, because I was doing something that I loved, which was teaching, speaking, and also then inspiring.
Yeah. Thank you, Terri. Why do you think it's important for churches to engage with children and young people?
Yeah. So I think I kind of shared this earlier. For me, it's that vision, it's it's the catching the vision, you know. I think it's so important that we highlight that. We've been really struggling as a church to, and I'm sure lots of churches do this, but we've been really struggling recently to kind of get people to serve on team and serve across teams. And I think a lot of the time that goes from, oh, we're just going to say it from the front, you know. One-to-one is actually much better, you know, investment, but we might not have the time for that. But I actually think I did it recently with my team, which was casting the vision. I think it's really important to do that. Cast the vision in your teams and the church to help shift mindsets and culture, to recognize and see that these ministries are crucial. You know, they're crucial for growth in a church. They're crucial for the future growth, but also for the growth of now. You know, I was telling somebody about this yesterday. I was like, we are in a spiritual warfare now, right now. And so why are we equipping just ourselves? We need to be equipping the young people as well for this warfare that's happening, because it's happening around them. It's happening around them right now. And the only way that, you know, they are going to be ready for it is if we armor them with God's armor, you know, and we lead them and we show them the way and we teach them the way. But we can also learn from them. Oh my God, so much from them. You know, my young people serve way more servant-hearted than some of the adults in my church. And, you know, I love that. The 2 and 3-year-old who own that babies and tots space, and they're like, yeah, this is our ministry. You know, that is crucial to have a space to belong and to invest in them now and long into the future. But you've got to cast that vision. You've got to cast that vision. And whatever that vision is for your church, you know, get behind it, back it, and share it as much as you can with your teams. Share it as much as you can with people at church, because you'll start to realize people catch it and they go, oh yeah. And then culture shifts, mindset shifts in the church, because they go, yeah, this matters. You know, these young people matter. And it's not just about me coming on Sunday or me going midweek to my thing to get what I need in my own individualistic spiritual world. It's about that mission that God calls us to. You know, Jesus blessed the children. He said to his disciples, no, swept them off the table and said, let them come, you know, let them come to me.
And just digging into that a little bit, how do you practically do that within your church? Like, how much of that is like strategy based, and how much of that is like vision, and how much of that is vision specifically for children and young people? And how do you kind of weave that into what you do?
Yeah, really important. So I think for me, like, the vision was strategic. I spent time praying, thinking about it, building it. And it still is to be built, I think, a little bit, you know, like I said, because we're a church plant, it's still building around my team, around what's happening, around how it functions. So our vision at Garden City Kids remains really simple, which is to know Jesus, be known by Jesus, and make Jesus known. And on our website, that's written. So it's like blasted on the kids page. It says we want to partner with parents to support them in nurturing their faith. And it kind of breaks that down into how we basically do that with our Sunday groups midweek. And then the hope for the future is to kind of explore, you know, faith, parenting for faith with some of the parents, and building into that. How do we make them know Jesus? Simple. We're doing Bible stories on a Sunday. We do all those kinds of things. How do they have a relationship with Jesus? How are they kind of building into that? So we have a lot of ministry time, you know, and time for them to feel like they're known by Jesus. So like I said, the kids doing their little, like, crying out to Jesus with their things, that's them going, I have a personal relationship with him, so I could talk to him. And then how do we make Jesus known? So that's where we're kind of investing in the vision that is for our church, which is really to actually spread the word across Milton Keynes and bring about renewal for the city. That is the vision for our church itself. You know, our church is rooted in the story of the Bible. The story starts in a garden, it ends in a garden city. And so the Bible is really crucial to the stuff that we do, both across kids and in youth. So on a Sunday, we also look at unfolding Bible stories. We look at that sort of stuff. But with youth, the vision is just expanded and a little bit bigger than that. So it's, what does it mean to follow Jesus and do the stuff that Jesus did? And that's really aligning with the vision that we have at church as well, that we are here in the city doing the stuff that Jesus did and practicing the way of Jesus. So that's exactly the same for the young people. So the vision kind of goes alongside our church vision. It doesn't sit separate, but it actually kind of just expands on that in a more deeper way that makes sense for the age ranges and the stuff that they're at. And so what that looks like is then in the activity, like I said, and how we then run our activities. But then also what it looks like is I guess with my team, really key in that is just honestly repeating it as many times as I can, telling them, this week we did this and I just repeat the words, until it becomes something that they get used to, like kind of saying and doing. But also, like I said, part of that vision is actually casting where do you see these children in 20 years time, And actually that's what I did with my team recently in a training session. Like we sat and I just started with that. I said, right, close your eyes. I want you just to picture a child in your head, right? Any child, can be any age, whatever. Can be your own child, can be whatever. Somebody at church or somebody that you know. And I just want you to see them where they are now, see what they're doing in your mind's eye. And then in 20 years time, what are they doing? Where are they? What are they up to? And actually that's that, long-term vision, strategic vision of like just casting what's possible, and what could we see them do? But like I said, that also comes down to being very practically aware of where we're at now. Let's cast that long-term vision, but I might not necessarily be able to get those kids to that point yet, but there's little things we can do to build that in. And you guys offered the youth training through Youthscape Essentials, and actually I found that really helpful. There was a session in that talked about strategic planning and how you kind of build your year, so you can also look at what have we managed to achieve this year through these different activities that we've done. So there's a little bit of that I kind of have done like across the year. A lot of that's also been humbling. Like I originally was like, I need to put in these meetings. I want to do a prayer meeting, a training session, a this each term. And I was like, that's not going to happen, right? I've got lots of volunteers. They've got jobs. They've got families. They've got life themselves. So maybe it's once a year we do a prayer meeting. Once a year we do this. Once a year we do that, And it's just slowly building it rather than kind of being like, I'm going to rush into all of these things. Because actually little is better if you do it effectively and you're able to then evaluate it and go, did that work? Was that good? And if it wasn't, what can we do next time? So there's a bit of to and froing across some of those things. And then I guess in the wider church, we haven't quite got to the point of being able to really cast that vision across wider church. It's something I want to be able to do. And so I've actually been gathering, particularly for kids, I've been gathering videos and photos of all the different activities and stuff we've been doing throughout the year. And at Christmas, I hope to be able to share that with the wider church, to be like, look, this ministry isn't just something that the kids go off to and you don't get to hear about it. We want you to hear about it. The parents do, because I send out a termly update so they understand what's going on with their children and what's happening. But the wider church, there's an opportunity to kind of explore how they hear about it. So they can catch that vision too, and then hopefully some of them step up to serve in that space as well.
Yeah. That all sounds great. What can we pray for you in your ministry?
I think for me at the moment, big things in particular, there's a bit of like spiritual warfare around team and building team. That's been really hard. I've invested in people, but there's been other stuff that have hit them when they've stepped up, and that's been a real challenge, like a real challenge, which has kind of meant that they've had to step back. And so I probably would really love some prayer over that, and just protection over people who want to step into this ministry, and actually, the wider protection around their life, around their world, that they can invest and they can step into the work that we do at Garden City. And I think within that, we've been church plant for 2 and a bit years, and across the board we've got multiple people that are continuing to serve in the same teams, and I think there's a bit of burnout kind of coming now, and so a real prayer for perseverance as a church would be incredible, and just some new fresh watering, of us, so that we can step out into everything that God's got for the church here in Milton Keynes and across the city. So that would be really cool.
Yeah, I will definitely be praying for that, and invite some of our listeners to pray for those things too.
Fantastic.
What advice or encouragement would you give for the youth and kids leaders listening?
Well, I've given you lots of nuggets. I hope throughout this whole thing I have. Do you know what? I'm actually going to share something. It's probably just something that I'm kind of going through a little bit at the moment, with a bit of overwhelm where you've got lots of stuff going on on your plate. But somebody shared this with me, which was an Instagram post. It's not even a Christian thing. So here we go. But it says this. It says, go little. When everything feels so big, go little. Wrap yourself with grace and space. Nibble your to-dos just one tiny bite at a time. You can't outrun overwhelm, my friend, but you can stay still enough that it passes you by. If you want to get more done, do less. Stress dissipates in the face of guilt-free, intentional rest. And I think the Lord calls us to that as well. Sabbath is a command, rest well. Really, we put it to the back end of our life because we think, I've got to keep going. But actually, rest is our first point of call, which is why I said pray, wait, trust.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to encourage you guys to just step back if you need to, do little and eat it away at a time, little by little, because you can't eat an elephant except by eating it little by little.
That is really wise. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming today. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Terri, and hear a bit of your story and hear some of your nuggets of wisdom, as you said. Thank you also to our listeners for tuning in today. I hope you found this episode useful and inspiring. There have been lots of little nuggets of things that hopefully people can take away. To our listeners, we're cheering you on in all you do for kids and youth and in your faith journey. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe the podcast, find Youth Work Plus on socials, and do contact us. We'd love to hear from you and connect with you. And yeah, do pray for those things that Terri asked for. It'd be great to kind of lift her and her ministry up in prayer. But yeah, apart from that, I will catch you on the next one. So it is a bye from me and it is a bye from Terri. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Becky.